tuning into Roll Call. The movie you selected is After Earth.
Hey everyone, welcome to Roll Call, the show where two childless millennials gush over movies and follow an actor's journey from their early years throughout their blockbuster hits.
Yes, because let's face it, when is it, like 3071 or 3071 would totally travel back to a dysfunctional and uninhabitable Earth to scope out the blockbuster selection.
Yes, and if you're not sure what to order, whether you're in the mood or to rent, if you're either in the mood for like an action sci-fi or like a Planet Earth documentary, then After Earth is like the perfect movie for you to rent.
Exactly. What's up, everybody? I am Bria, and me conquering fear would probably get me a lot more places in life. So that is something good to learn from this movie.
Definitely. And I'm Simone, and Bria, I think we need to add Costa Rica to our Roll Call travel bucket list because Haven't you
been to Costa Rica?
Yes, but I was like a 15-year-old brat, and all I wanted to do was go to like a internet cafe and talk to all of my fans on MySpace. So I really want to redo Costa Rica again.
Okay, that's fair. Anyways, like Simone said earlier, in today's episode, we'll chat about Will Smith in the 2013 sci-fi action adventure After Earth. So let's take a trip back to May of 2013, which doesn't feel that long ago to me, but it is almost 10 years ago. So we've previously covered some pretty iconic things this year, like Miley Cyrus twerking, Beyonce's self-titled masterpiece, but let's find some hidden gems here. Okay. Does anyone remember when Tilda Swinton laid in a glass box as a part of an art exhibit at the MoMA in New York City?
I don't, but what I love about Tilda Swinton is that she is a chameleon. Like, she can either be 90 fucking years old or like a smoking hot sword wielding like badass, right?
Yeah.
So, what was she dressed as?
She would just go there and like sleep every night and people could come see her. There's actually an episode of Sex and the City where Carrie's dating this artist and they go see like a performance artist like that, and so Carrie's like, oh, let's go like at a crazy time because I bet you she's not even really there sort of thing. So it was funny to me that Tilda Swinton decided to do that, but it's also something that like it's very on brand. Like, it's not some, like, if J-Lo decided to do this, I'd be like, what is wrong with her? Like, something's off. Tilda Swinton, it's like, oh, that makes sense. That checks out. Yeah. In other kind of jaw-dropping, no pun intended, news, Michael Douglas announces he has cancer, but
that was not intended. That was 100% pun intended.
But it's not the cancer that is like the newsworthy. I mean, that's newsworthy, of course. But the shocker part of that is that he admits that it was possibly due to a bit of peaches and cream action with his wife, Catherine Zeta-Jones.
And she's like, don't throw my pussy under the bus like that. Shit.
So also now everybody knows that Michael Douglas is either a prolific cat muncher or like, you know, so everyone's like, wow, okay, that's a hell of a way to get cancer. I mean, if you're going to get it, I mean, that's probably top of the list right there, you know? Yeah. Also, we've talked about the hot mess express and problematic, troubled youth of the 2000s, including Amanda Bynes. But, you know, in these moments of, you know, obviously mental distress and stuff, there are some gems of just pop culture. Like, you can't make this shit up. So Amanda Bynes in 2013 tweeted, "I want @ Drake to murder my vagina."
Yeah, that was the first clue that we were like, are you okay? I think at that point she had gotten in trouble for like throwing a bong out a window or like had a couple of maybe like drug charges on her then. But seeing that tweet for the first time, I was like, that is an unhinged, intrusive thought. And you just
Yeah.
showed that to the entire world.
Yeah, so I mean, we can kind of laugh about it now. I hope
I
Amanda
know.
Bynes is doing well, but in 2013, I definitely would have been like, "Whoo, what's going on here?" Like,
Yeah.
and now I'm like, "Whoo, pray for the children." A little bit of 6 degrees of news. The Mr. Jennifer Lopez, now Ben Affleck, wins his Oscar for Argo. And in other movie news, Sir Robert Ebert, and I'm just knighting him a la Roll Call podcast. Sir Robert Ebert passes away. So let's pour one out for Lil Raj. So this, I think, is his last Will review.
Last week was. This week is our first posthumous review.
Okay. All right. Thank you. And moving on over kind of to like black pop culture, but not really, because I'm just going to talk about Will and Jaden, because like you have two black stars here, father and son duo. There was some stuff happening around this time. So Will and Jaden have numerous interviews for this movie. They're rather endearing to see, like him with his like dad hat on, kind of, and also trying to be like Mr. like movie star. But there's this weird interview of them that gains traction because it seems very like Scientology like adjacent, or like, Jaden's talking about like, oh, I'm a physicist and stuff like that. So that was interesting. Also at this time, Jaden was thinking about emancipating himself, which of course is always news in Hollywood. And then you have a family like the Smiths. It's like, what's going on there? And they always kind of have like these little whispering rumors going on about them. They're Scientologists, they're swingers, all these things. Their kids are weird. So I'm sure that was just like another cherry on the Smith banana split sundae. Also for this movie, not in 2013 but 2014, they won 3 Golden Raspberry Awards. One for Worst Actor for Jaden, Worst Supporting Actor for Will, and Worst Acting Combo for Will and Jaden, which I feel like is probably it. This is our Gigli of the season, in my opinion.
I know. And honestly, what a slap to go from like getting awards. They got like the Nickelodeon Award or some like screen award for like best on
for
screen.
Pursuit of Happiness. Yeah,
for Pursuit of Happiness. So like that's gotta feel so sucky.
Yeah. They are on the cover of New York Magazine, Mr. and Mr. Smith. That's so cute. Their father and son's very cute cover. And then there's a few articles. I read the article that was in the New York Magazine, and then there's a Vulture article too about how After Earth is like this love letter to Scientology and has like all these Scientology ideals in it. We can talk about that maybe as we talk about the movie. I do want to note though that some very credible Scientologists and ex-Scientologists like Mike Rinder, if you know, you know, but he is friends with Leah Remini and they do a podcast together, and they did the Scientology special she had on A&E together, and he was a very high-ranking member of Scientology. He has definitively said that Will Smith was not a Scientologist, but he did dabble in it, and he is friends and was friends with Tom Cruise, so like I'm sure they like learned some stuff, but can't crucify him for being a Scientologist, for real. Also, last but not least, this picture kind of lives somewhere in my mind rent free, because little Jaden Smith at this time was like a tween star. He did Karate Kid. He was, he grew a lot in this movie. He hit puberty, and so he's, of course, like he's hanging out with Justin Bieber, who is like, the JTT of this time. He is the teen star of this time. So he's got a little cachet to him. And of course, coming with that kind of young teen fame is a young teen girlfriend by the name of Kylie Jenner. And so there's this picture of them that I remember seeing, and I put in the document of them leaving the movie theater. And, it's just two kids holding hands. But wait, why is Jaden's mouth so white and discolored?
It looked like he put a powdered donut just like, boo, like right around his mouth.
So this picture lives in my mind rent-free. And also I feel like kind of a proud auntie in that he got away from, like, I think they're still friends. I think it's probably hard to not have been friends with the Kardashian Jenners in Hollywood, unless, I mean, there's probably people who aren't friends with them. But anyways, he got away from that nonsense. So for that, we salute you, Jaden. But whew, man, what a picture to like have of your youth. Like
I'm just a teenage dirtbag baby.
Oh my god, maybe I should do him for that TikTok trend.
That's it.
And then we have box office of May 2013, and I found this lovely list from Movie Insider that just said the best movies released in May 2013. Okay. So we have Epic, Fast and Furious 6. Oh my god. Tyler Perry Presents Peoples, The Hangover Part 3, which I forgot they made 3 of those. I thought it stopped at 2. Yeah. Woo. Now You See Me, the Magic movie with Woody Harrelson and that kid from The Social Network.
Yeah, Jesse Eisenberg.
Yes. I thought I was going to say Michael Eisenberg. No. Iron Man 3. Okay. And After Earth. So, Simone, I'm going to hand that over to you. What did this movie cost and what did it make in 2013?
All right. Here we go. After Earth, a story created by Will Smith, but brought to life by director infamous M. Night Shyamalan. After Earth, knowing M. Night's large production, at this point, he's like kind of losing grace in the Hollywood world. He's like, I gotta come up with a great blockbuster to like get me back into favor of the viewers. So After Earth originally was supposed to be 130 minutes long, but they decided to cut it down to that's like 2 hours and 10 minutes compared to the 1 hour and 40 minute time length. This movie had a budget of $130 million. Opening weekend, 27.5 mil. Gross between US and Canada is 60.5 mil. Worldwide, 243.6 million. Now, they made their money back, but this movie is very infamously known for having a bad rap, for having mismatched acting energies. And so in a lot of people's eyes, a lot of people have kind of reviewed this as like one of Will Smith's worst movies.
Ooh. All right. Well, what is the consensus on that via Laura is dead, y'all. And he can't talk to us. So somebody on his website wrote something.
Somebody said something, and this person was Matt Zoller Seitz. So do you want to guess how much this person gave After Earth, considering what we know, how like the general audience viewed it?
I'm going to say 1. 1.5 is generous.
Okay. Buckle your fucking seatbelt. Matt Zoller Seitz gives After Earth 3.5 stars.
Okay.
So one of the highest ranking films, just nigh a half star below Legends of Bagger Vance. Keep in mind, these were two different writers, 2 different opinions. But I want to say there's probably some kind of Roger Ebert, like, school of writing. I'm willing to bet his, like, staff and crew had, like, many lessons with him, like, telling how movie journalism works.
Yeah. There's a movie rating or movie review star academy where you learn what each star means and possesses and how much weight it holds. So you better not fuck it up, bitch.
And then And then for their final exam is they're all shown a different movie and they have to rank it. And if Raj like agrees with it, he's like, "All right, you're in. You're
It's
on my
like being a
rating team."
sommelier. You know, it's like
Ooh.
essentially it's objective, but there's some shit that like you gotta grasp and pretend to understand to be like, this wine is, you know, high ranking. Like,
Damn. I love that analogy. Also, like, you can totally use that, yeah, analogy for ranking movies because some person might like already be disposed to disliking reds, like how I dislike teen or like rom-coms. So therefore, when you're like going to taste it, you already have a feeling of like, I'm probably not going to like this.
but see, the best of the best, you can't be a sommelier if you can't be objective.
That's
And see,
true.
that's
But then every now and again, you find one that like, oh, I'll be damned. This works for me.
yes. So,
Okay.
um,
Roundabout. Some of the
yes.
highlights from this article, starting with After Earth, is a lovely surprise. This film from producer co-star Will Smith and director M. Night Shyamalan about a father and son marooned on a hostile future Earth is a moral tale disguised as a sci-fi blockbuster. It's no classic, but it's a special movie, spectacular and wise, which I thought was very interesting, like a very strong opening.
Yeah.
Going on to some of the plot, which we'll talk about in a little bit. He says that I realize I've described the main characters as if we spent the first hour eavesdropping on them in therapy. After Earth isn't like that. It's a stoic film about stoic characters fighting for their lives. The Rage's ship is damaged in a freak asteroid storm tossed out of hyperspace into Earth's orbit. If the castaways don't call for help soon, they'll asphyxiate or get eaten by predators. He does go on to say, it's just a little bit dig about M. Night, like, this isn't the right time, or sorry, he goes like, although it hasn't been the right time for M. Night Shyamalan, this is the right movie at the right time. He usually writes, directs, and acts in this feature. His control freak tendencies magnify both his merits and his flaws. After the critical and box office misfires of The Village, Lady in the Water, The Happening, and The Last Airbender, some thought he was finished as an A-list filmmaker. His talent was still there, but it was hard to see it behind all that ego. But that, like, essentially this movie kind of makes up for it. And it's ultimately too thin of a story to support all of its grandiose embellishments, but so what? It's better to try to pack every moment with beauty and feeling than to shrug and smirk. The film takes the characters and their feelings seriously and lets its actors give strong but simple performances. And I will stop at that.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder how old this man was.
I don't know, but it says Matt Zoller's site is the editor-at-large for the RogerEbert.com, TV critic for New York Magazine and Vulture.com, and a finalist for Pulitzer Prize in Criticism.
That's high praise.
I would love to get a Pulitzer Prize in criticism. Just call that grading papers, man. Of just like, you need to work on your storyline, baby.
He was born in 1968, so he's like 50. Damn, he's like JLo's age. Anyways, okay. Well, I have a hard time like ranking this movie because I feel like movie-wise, it's probably like it's not a movie I would have picked to like, oh, I want to go see After Earth in theaters. But I think in the scope of Will's career, reading his book and his thoughts on making this movie and like what was going on in his life, like I see this as like really just like a father-son project and a father like guiding his son kind of into acting and being like, okay, like, and like in a weird way, like it's very metaphoric of like, you know, letting your kid go and become, or your son become a man and like having to trust like the things you taught them are gonna help them and register at the right times. So like in that sense, like I really enjoyed that part of it, and seeing like he also plays like not that great of a man. Like, you know, like he's not someone I would have married in space, just saying. But yeah, so I don't know. I think 3.5 is really generous, but maybe I'll go 3 because it's not Wild Wild West bad, but it's, and even that, like, as not great as this is, like, Wild Wild West is a classic bad movie. So, like,
Yeah.
so even that, I might have to go back and rank that a little higher than this, but yeah, this one was okay. So 3's fine.
It's interesting because I also felt really stuck ranking this movie. This was my first time seeing it. This wouldn't have been something that I went to have seen in the theater, but watching it at my house, I kind of wish that I was watching it in a theater, having a bigger screen and like more surround experience, because I really thought some of the world building in this was beautiful and very like wonderfully shot.
Yeah.
They filmed a lot of this in Costa Rica. Like that was a real volcano too. So I just that like
Active.
yeah. And that is just something that like I just kind of enjoyed as a viewer. There were a lot of practical effects and like set pieces which I thought were really fun. So, but at the same time, you know, acting wise, I wouldn't say it's bad. It's just really different. It's such a stray from Will's normal kind of acting. So for this, I would also give it a 3.
Oh, okay. Wow. Is this the first time we've agreed this season? No, probably like Legend of Bagger Vance.
Yeah.
I'm gonna make a shirt with ask me about Legend of Bagger Vance. Anyways, to go on from our thoughts on After Earth, what did you think, like talking about wishing you saw it in theaters, what did you think of the trailer?
I thought the trailer was really suspenseful. The trailer actually starts off with how the first 3 minutes of the movie start, where they actually go forward in time, then back in time, then like it catches up again at some point. And it doesn't like jolt you around too much back and forth in time, which I like because then I'll get too confused. Anyways, so the trailer shows the first few minutes of the airship crash, and they didn't use a lot of like noise. It was just this like breathing moment between Jaden and Will, and then all of a sudden like Will gets ripped up, like the pieces of the plane are spinning out of control, and that's really suspenseful. I feel like it did a really good job like gaining audience attention and stuff. I remember seeing this trailer in the theater and being like, that looks good, like looks decent.
Yeah.
It wasn't one of those action movies like let's say Rampage with like Dwayne the Rock Johnson where there's just like a giant King Kong gorilla like tearing across the town. Like that's an action movie that would like probably make me roll my eyes. But like this wasn't something that I rolled my eyes to. It just may not have been my cup of tea.
Yeah. I think to me the trailer is a little bit deceiving. Like, I don't know. I would think like a lot more would happen in this movie based on like the trailer. So it's a lot calmer than I expected it to be. Pretty much. The cast, not a huge cast.
Yes.
Obviously we have Will, but I guess we could take this time to talk about Mr. Jaden Smith and his acting. And I've only seen him in Pursuit of Happiness. I have not seen him in Karate Kid. That was a little above my age range by that time. And then I know he was on the show The Get Down, I think. So I don't have a vast knowledge of like how much better he's gotten or not, except for from Pursuit of Happiness to this. But I would say like this is a pretty like solid, I feel like, first go around as a teen actor, you know? I wouldn't say like he like acting is like supernatural for him, but I don't think he's a bad actor either. So I thought his performance was pretty well. Also, I thought too, like seeing him in that little outfit, I was like, he would have made a great Spider-Man. Like,
Yeah,
I know I would have went to see that. Like if he was
for sure.
he still can be, but like if he was like Miles
Yeah.
Morales or something.
Yeah, that would be really cool. And yeah, he even though he's obviously like older now, I still think he could play like a perfectly good mid-20s Spider
Yeah.
like Miles Morales or something. I absolutely see that.
But yeah, I mean, nothing to write too home about. I felt like his emotions, like him being scared and stuff like that, read really well to me at least. It's not super dramatic. I thought he was believable in like the action stuff he did, and
Hmm.
there's a video of him training or talking about his training, which like I kind of was impressed with, because I would have thought like he probably just was like, yeah, sure, I'll like do this movie with you, Dad. But like he, and I should know better because the Smith family are very like serious, like I want to be the best type of people. So he did his due diligence and took up some training and put on some weight for this movie and muscle, I guess.
Yeah.
And I should know that too, because Karate Kid, he actually like learned martial arts and stuff too.
Yeah, and he was
Oh.
fucking ripped and he was like a child.
Yeah. So yeah, I think I'm impressed to like his commitment in this movie, and like he pretty much is the movie. Like so it wasn't like dull at any points where like I Am Legend, where it's like mostly Will, like
Yeah.
to be able to like do that in I would say this is more like a 75-25% type of, where it's like him and Will. So to be able to do that at this age and like with like your big ass movie star dad, good job. Like
Yeah. Honestly, this felt like more of Jaden's movie. And in a lot of the cases,
he had top
it
billing.
was top billed, right? So, I'm there with you where the only other movie I've seen is Pursuit of Happiness. I did not see Karate Kid, so I don't have a lot of like other acting comparisons. Obviously, he's a lot older in this movie. And we see that shift of like very cute child acting, but still believable in the Pursuit of Happiness. We talked about the scene where he dropped his Captain America doll and was like, he like had freaking lost it because they were running to get their spot at Glide Memorial. And I was like, ooh, like I really felt that. This time we don't see so much of that, but we do see a wider range of emotion like fear, and then also this like longing to want to like connect with his dad, that like innocence, naivety, and a little bit of cockiness too, and like some teen attitude. But like for the
Yeah.
most part, he was just always looking up at Will. And I know that that was part of his character, but it just felt like very believable that, not a lot of kids like look up to their parents like that. So,
Yeah.
um,
And he would know about living in his dad's shadow. Like
oh,
so.
absolutely. There was probably a lot of great like inspiration of feeling like he had something to prove, and also feeling that need maybe in like the real life as he's like starting to build his career as a young actor. And puberty reared its head a little bit here and there. Like there are some dialogues where his voice cracked, and I thought, oh, that's interesting that they kept it in, but I'm kind of glad that they did, because again, it shows that it's like this transition between like boyhood and like proving yourself that you can grow up, right? I thought that was really smart. It was like right when he's at the waterfall and he's gonna get ready to sky jump, and he was just like, I can do it, and his little like cracked just a little bit.
Oh my god, I have part. I do want to say too, heavy on the teen angst. Like just like angsty future child. You're a dad. Like and then we have his mother. So Jaden's character, sorry, his name is Katai,
Mhm.
and Will's character's name is Cypher, and he is made to, I want to say Faye, or played by Sophie Okonedo.
Yeah.
and I've seen her in stuff before. Very small role, but believable wife and mother type figure. Very good at guilt tripping Cypher into being like, your son just wants to connect with you and like just be a dad to him. Like, you're this general, like, very serious guy, but he's softer than you and he needs like a little more tenderness. So that was nice to me. I really want to talk about Zoe Kravitz.
Yes. She looks exactly the same as she did in Batman, as she did in this movie, and that like she hasn't aged in 10 years. I feel like she looks almost exactly the same.
I feel like she's aged in the way that like some people, not me, some people are like kind of chunky as kids, and you have your baby fat and stuff. So looking at her, like when she was probably around Jaden's age, she's kind of like that, and then she got really like thinner, and she's like very thin to me now, like that wavy like 30 like weight. So but yeah, she still looks amazing. I think it's very interesting because after the Oscars incident, Zoe Kravitz had a little tongue-in-cheek caption on her Instagram post, like, oh, here's the dress I wore to the event where apparently we're assaulting people now. And so Twitter ate her up and was just like, are you serious? Like, and I didn't realize she did this movie with them when that was happening, but people dug up all this stuff that she was saying about Jaden and how mature he is for his age, and she has to like remind herself that like, oh, he's like way too young or whatever, like call me when you get older, but no, not really. And so people are like, oh, you want to talk about like problematic behavior. And so woo, man, I don't know that she's quite recovered on the Twitter streets, at least.
Oh,
but,
interesting.
And it sucked because it was still like very much Batman hype and stuff like that. So people were like, we were rooting for you. All you had to do was sit there and eat your food. But no. So I'm definitely going to share those interviews and snippets when we promote this episode. But yeah, so it's very interesting to me for her to be playing Will's daughter and Jaden's sister in this movie, knowing she had like those thoughts, feelings, whatever. But
see, I didn't know that going into it, but I thought looks wise it was really smart casting. Like her and the young actor that they chose to play an even younger Kitai Rage, his name is Jaden Martin. And
Jaden and Jaden.
Jaden and Jaden. Like they both looked very believably related.
Yeah, and like they were Cypher and Faye's children as well. Like Zoe Kravitz and Sophie Okonedo kind of favor each other a bit, I would say.
Yeah, definitely.
But like her part was small, but like she had a very important part because she's probably like the reason Cypher's such a hard ass with Kitai, because
absolutely
she dies because of the Ursa alien monster thing, and two, like Kitai feels like he has to be the best and be just as good as his dad because his sister got killed and he should have protected her, all that trauma stuff.
Yeah, he definitely blames himself for her death, and you're right, her part's small but very important. She serves to and from like certain flashback scenes for both Kitai and Cypher, but also as like a spiritual guide at some points when Kitai gets astray from the and stuff.
Yeah.
So
and he like falls asleep and she's like, wake up. And then that was crazy.
That was creepy, yeah.
Yeah. That was impressive to me. I do think I haven't seen her as Catwoman in Batman. I should watch that. But
yeah, so good.
I feel like she's taken like very like typical roles I would expect her to play. You know, I did like her in High Fidelity. I did like her in Big Little Lies, but like it never felt to me like, oh, like this is not at all who I think Zoe Kravitz is, you know? It always felt like, oh, yeah, this is like kind of what I expect her to be like, you know, that kind of character or acting where it's not like taking you out of like who that person is, or like just Will in this movie alone, like I think he's probably a hard ass in some respects, like in his life and stuff, but like we get to see him as this like goofy, silly, like always like cracking jokes type of guy. And in this movie, he's like, he has such a stick up his ass, like, so, like that difference, like this, I feel like I haven't seen her in anything yet that has made me go like, oh, wow, like, you know. But good performance. Moving on, let's talk about Mr. Will Smith. Or
yes.
we should summarize the movie for people who don't want to maybe watch this movie that other people have said is bad. If you're listening to this and you haven't watched it, I would suggest you do. I don't think it's a waste of anyone's time.
I agree.
Yeah.
I don't think it was I've seen worse movies.
Right. Here's looking at you, Blood and Wine.
And Bagger Vance.
And Bagger Vance. B movies.
Looking at you, Blood and Wine.
I'm just going to do a quick... you kind of went over it in the trailer, but essentially, Earth is inhabitable. There's a space colony, and there are these animals who have been bred, or aliens or whatever, who have been bred to kill humans essentially. And so the way that they hunt them is based on smelling the pheromones in their fear. And Will Smith's character Cypher is one of very few people who is fearless enough to not be detected by them, and so he has this amazing reputation as this ghost. And so he's able to pretty much ghost and sneak up and kill them and whatnot. And so, you know, there's flashbacks of these animals like coming and fucking shit up and killing people, and him, you know, killing them, or his daughter being killed. But his son is also older now and trying to train to be a ranger, which is what he is, but at a high level. And he does not make it. So, of course, like any kid trying to impress their father, they're like, you know, mad at themselves and whatnot. He goes on a mission with his dad on a spaceship, and they get into some like asteroid storm, and it's fucking up the spaceship. So they're like, we gotta land, otherwise we're just gonna like, we're not gonna be able to like get through this asteroid storm. And the only place to land is Earth, and Earth is terrible now. No one's been on it for thousands of years, I'm assuming. And so they crash land, and Jaden is probably like the only one really seat belted up and like, you know, in a safety kind of situation to be able to survive. But somehow Will survives, of course. So Cypher and Katai are the only survivors, and Cypher's injured, so he has Katai help him get to like one of the hubs in this ship where he's able to communicate with him still. And he's like, you have to go find the tail, which has another like SOS type signal thing, and you have to go by yourself because I can't go, but I can guide you from here. So basically the whole movie is Will back at the crash site watching and guiding Katai, and Katai going through this uninhabitable, very overgrown, just wild Earth, and fighting through some animals and some fear and, you know, hurdles like running out of breath liquid stuff, and and not listening to his dad and be like, no, I'm gonna go on anyways. And ultimately he's able to get the beacon, send for help, and him and his dad are rescued. But there are very valuable lessons learned along the way. Very coming of age. So, did I miss anything?
In addition to landing on Earth, the plane contained an egg of an Ursa.
With the Ursa, yes.
And that egg like broke and the Ursa got loose. And so in addition to all of the 1,000-year-old adaptations of like some fucked up creatures and the fluctuation of temperature and stuff, Kitai has to battle the Ursa without the like physical guidance of his father.
Yes, and ultimately become a ghost himself.
This is an appropriate form of ghosting.
Yes, don't ghost. Well, I can't tell people not to ghost people. I ghost people. But think about it real hard before you do.
Yeah, it's a dick move.
There were some great interviews for this movie.
A lot of interviews, yeah.
I just think like it's cool, like their dynamic is still very like I think playful and father and son-ish, and like, you know, I also thought it was interesting Will kept talking about like parenting mistakes he made while making this movie. There was an instant where wherever Jaden was filming, I think probably in Costa Rica somewhere, there were these deadly snakes in the vicinity, and the set people caught like 5 of them, but they like warned him. They're like, yeah, this area is like, you know, we've seen it a lot. And he's like, oh, well, you caught him, like it's fine, like we keep going. And he's like, I don't know, if Jada was there, she definitely would shut that shit down. But I was just like, yeah, no, let's keep going. I will say though that in his book he talks about how he really wanted to create a safe space for Jaden in making this movie, whereas I think during The Karate Kid he really pushed him a lot and was trying to like probably like teach him like the hard lessons of like this is what making a movie is like, whereas this movie he was like, I want him to be as comfortable as possible, and like if he needs something, you know that I'm there to help him, not be the person that's going to be like on his case or anything like that. And so I think that too is why I ranked this movie high, because I feel like we normally wouldn't get to know all this, but I feel like a lot of maybe good came out of them doing this movie together despite it not doing well. I think the worst thing was that Will was like, you know, I feel like Jaden didn't trust me as much after this because I led him down this path and it didn't turn out great.
Interesting.
And he got a lot of the backlash for it. So in that sense, he felt like he failed him, but like in a parenting sense, in some ways, like he felt like their relationship was a little better. Like he decided not to be emancipated and eventually after this, but you know, the feeling of like, you know, Jaden was asked to do like a stunt or something a certain way, and he's like, I don't think, like, that doesn't seem natural to me, like I don't think that would happen. And they were trying to push him to do it, and Will says, you know, when he could see him on the monitor and hear him, and so when he was like, oh, well, can you get my dad? Like that feeling of his son being like, I know if I need to, that he's gonna like be there for me or be there to protect me and back me up, sort of thing. And I think maybe there were, I have to reread his book, but there were some instances where he felt like he wasn't being that for him. So like that, I'm like, you can't be mad at like him like making this movie with his son and trying to like, you know, guide him through movie making in Hollywood in this sense. And you know, it might not have been the best, but was it ever going to win an Oscar? Like, probably not. So
probably not. Well, I'll be reading the book too, so I'll definitely keep my eye out for that part, because I think that's really interesting that he reflects back on that time and feels as though he might have led Jaden astray, or like at the time Jaden felt disappointed that like he was the one catching the bad reputation for the movie and getting like the brunt of the criticism, whereas like a lot of people it's more forgivable for Will Smith because he's fucking Will Smith and he's done
Yeah.
so much stuff that it's like, all right, you can pop out like a bad movie here and there, but like still be okay.
Yeah, I
You
mean,
know?
even M. Night like took the brunt of the directing criticisms
Sure.
or whatever as well, and apparently Will had very much a lot of say in directing and choices and guiding Jaden and his acting choices too.
Yeah.
So,
I also wonder if this movie how different this would have been with a different director. It would have been a completely different feel and story to it. M. Night
Michael
Shyamalan.
Bay.
I like I'm thinking almost like James Cameron's like Avatar world, right? Like the world of
Yeah.
Pandora is like so I mean, say some people like people love or hate Avatar. But you know, M. Night Shyamalan is so well known for being this out of the box thinker and sometimes it's brilliant and it's pulled off really well and then other times you're like, oh, swing and a miss, bud.
Well,
But
he's not proud of this movie,
oh,
so.
definitely. But I wonder if people were already going into it with those like criticized
Oh,
eyes of like, all right, let's see how bad, like they might have already thought it, like the wine tasting analogy, right? Like you were kind
yeah.
of going into it thinking,
Like, I usually don't like Reds. Like, I usually don't like M. Night Shyamalan movies. Like,
yes,
so, I doubt I'll like this one. Let's see. Yeah, that's true. But I highly encourage, if you have nothing better to do, to go watch some of their interviews. Oh my God, their Ellen appearance is really, like,
yes,
funny and cute. They do like a little obstacle course, and of course Will's like embarrassing him and doing dad things. So like that dynamic is fun. But
there was one interview, it wasn't the unscripted one, it might have been on the Jake's Takes one, where it almost looked like they were on set for something.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. And
And
he was like, did he ask the movie question, like if you could do any of your dad's other movies with him, what
yes,
movie would you want to
yes.
be in?
And then Will kind of like was like, you can't handle it. You're not there yet. And you kind of sense this bit of like father-son tension. He's like, you don't want to do a movie like I Am Legend because remember you saying like how I would come home like so affected by that movie and how it affected therefore like his family and everything for and then he was just like you're also not ready to do like a big movie like this by yourself because
Yeah.
in a lot of ways they're alone in this movie. There are a lot of times where Will was like delivering lines to nothing. And
Yeah.
same with Jaden, like delivering lines. I mean, of course, they're supposed to like be telecommuting through, you know, the little like speaker on the wrist pad. But even so, it's such different acting when you're face to face with someone where you can read their facial expressions or whatever. And then versus either talking to a green screen and having to like pretend that something's there, which was the case a lot of the time.
Yeah, that's true. I never thought about that. I did think it was interesting though that Jaden did choose iRobot that he would do. I don't see where there's a place for him in that movie. There barely was for Shia LaBeouf. I did think that that Jake guy was onto something about putting him in Bad Boys 3. Like
Yes, I saw the third bad boy.
yeah, I was like, oh, I did like that suggestion. So that was a good question and interview. That guy seemed like he loved his job. So
Yeah. He asked
and
good
then
questions. That was good
yeah,
interview.
yeah. Trying to think. I mean, they were just fun. Like the movie phone unscripted one was like funny because they're like fan questions and stuff.
Hmm.
A couple moments where like there's an interview where they ask Will like, oh, what are you afraid of, or you know, and Jaden like starts answering for him. He's like, hey, you can't tell her what my worst nightmare is. Like you don't know. And then it's so awkward. He's like, this is my worst nightmare. My son like doing this
Yeah.
during an interview right now. So yeah, those were fun. I didn't learn anything groundbreaking about like their choices acting wise and stuff like that.
No, but I think, I think overall, kind of going back to what I was saying, this is a big leap for Jaden, and taking a lot of risks. I think, I wonder how difficult it was for Will to be so cold and distant. And I think
Mm.
that's what really hit or like missed the mark for a lot of people was that you take one of the most charismatic actors in Hollywood and then give them like no character traits at all, just completely like stone iron faced because of his job. Like, but absence of fear doesn't have to necessarily mean like absence of emotion itself. But I understand how like if you teach yourself not to be fearful, then obviously seeing your children in these perilous situations, you have to like keep calm because you've like mastered that art so much. But yeah, I think for me, I think the difficult thing to push through was that besides the part where he's like yelled at Katai at like the dinner table of like request denied, sit down, like he was very, very calm and flat. And like Will
Yeah.
Smith did not Will Smith himself in this movie at all.
No. Very opposite of what I would have expected. And I don't know, maybe that was a choice for that reason, but yeah, I agree. Like, I don't think that he had to be such a hard ass for him to be like this hero or this well known, like, fighter, general type dude. And I kind of wish, like, the way he got injured, like, I kind of wish they crashed and like maybe they both were like about to like, okay, we need to go find the other thing, and that he got injured during that, like, because the action is, like I said, it feels very calm. Like there's a lot of there, of course there's things where like Katai is going through and there's this huge bird when he jumps off, and so like the bird's like chasing him, but then the bird winds up helping him.
Dude, that
Or
made me cry.
really?
I said, am I
Wow.
crying at this mother eagle sacrificing herself to keep this little boy warm? Yes, I am.
And then there's like a bunch of like cats, like wild big cats, at some point trying to get at her babies and him and stuff. And then of course the Ursa. So there's moments of like kind of action and adversity, but I don't know, I feel like I expected a little bit more, and you definitely expect more of Will. There's the
Yeah.
flashbacks with Will, but like I kind of wish I saw him like kicking ass more, and then
Yeah. He like
and then
breaks
he
his
gets
leg in
injured.
another way. Yeah,
Yeah.
I totally agree. It would have been great to see more action because a lot of the time, Will his character Cypher breaks both of his legs and he's unable to, stand, and he can kind of like maneuver and grab some medicine and things like that. But for the most part, he's pretty much just like sitting in a chair and either like looking at a screen and monitoring something or like having flashbacks or whatever. So it would have been really cool to see him on the field with Katai and maybe teaching him how to be
Yeah.
a ghost.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like that would have been more impactful. But the inspiration for this movie was actually a true story. It was like a survival story that Will had seen on TV of like an actual father and son like getting into like a car accident or something, and the son having to go on to find help because the dad was too injured to go as well.
Mm-hmm.
So if that's the reason you decide to make this movie and write it, then I can understand why that's the plot.
Yeah.
But personally, everybody wants to see Will Smith kick ass. He didn't run in this movie. No. um what else?
I think what also, we've seen, you brought up iRobot, right?
Mhm.
And Jaden saying that he would have wanted to be an iRobot. This, that and this movie, I would say, are like the two biggest sci-fis I would, I get it. Men in Black is also considered a sci-fi, but that's like a sci-fi comedy. I would put this more in the realm of an iRobot, where it's more like action thriller kind of thing,
Yeah.
sci-fi action, not too much comedy in it. Um, but the thing was that's like, he's used different language, like non-English vocabulary words in Men in Black, like deneuralizer, or, whatever. Um, deneuralizer? Neuralizer.
There's both. Because
Okay.
in the second one, when Tommy Lee Jones comes back, they have to deneuralize him
Correct.
because they want
Yes.
him to
Right.
try to
Right,
remember stuff.
Right. But like even that kind of vocabulary was still pretty like understandable. But this one had a lot of like futuristic sci-fi like vernacular and vocab. So I just thought that that also set it apart too, in terms of like the names of people, the alien species and stuff like that. What were you
Yeah.
gonna say?
What do you think about his accent?
Oh, okay. So that's where it took me out of it, because I just did not know what their accents were. And unfortunately, I think Jaden really suffered from it more. It sounded like a mixture of Southern and English. Like it sounded like a Southern person trying to do an English accent.
Yeah. I saw somewhere where they said South African, kind
But
of, but
even that sounded like a stretch, and that's kind of a hard one to do because it's not quite British or English. It has,
it's
different
kind of
tone,
Australian
little bit
and
New
British.
Zealandish, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So unfortunately for me, when Jaden was speaking, a lot of his R sounds sounded like that, the speech impediment that some like little toddlers have, where they make their R's sound like O's, like purple
Oh.
instead of purple,
Oh.
right? So it just
Yeah.
kind of warbled the speech a little bit. And I'm sorry, I know that sounds mean, but like that's kind of what took me out of some of the acting, that I couldn't take as seriously, because I'm like, what is this accent?
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't love the accent. I think by now, sorry, Will, but I don't think you're very good at accents.
Accents
Like,
are tough.
yeah, and I know. I mean, when I try to do my little fake British accent, I'm like, oh, I sound horrible. So,
Yeah.
like,
I'm
it's
just
not easy.
wondering why they needed accents. Like, in the future, do people have the ones that survive? Do they have just one dialect because there's just one like part of the
Probably
planet that
not.
has humans living? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I would say no. Like, but I would think just another way to try to make it like different, and cuz also there's no reason for this to be in the future. It could have very much been like a father-son camping trip, and
Yeah.
the dad gets injured halfway through, they get in a car crash and the dad is hurt, but he can't help. The son needs to go for help. Like, it could have been very much what he was inspired by, but in his book he talks about trying to like think about like taking inspiration, but then like putting it in a different setting and world building and all this stuff. So
Yeah. I didn't mind that it was set in the future. I thought that that was a cool twist to it, but it was just like the accent piece that had me scratching my head. But as someone who teaches social studies and analyzes, thousands of years ago civilizations and peoples, I'm sure obviously dialects, accents, languages get changed over time. So
yeah.
I'm sure they were probably just going for like, what's the most futuristic sounding
Way
accent,
we could start talking.
I guess.
What do we think that this movie holds up today?
Oh yeah, absolutely. They're re-releasing a new Avatar soon. I think this December we're gonna get another one. Like, there's a lot of viability in the sci-fi world. Now, if
Yeah.
this was like still direct, like this exact movie to be done, I still think probably would receive some kind of criticism. M. Night's last movie that he put out was this movie called Old, which
Mm-hmm.
has like acting okay, but like the twist and stuff was like, there you go. That's your storytelling, M. Night. Good job.
Well, I mean, this is like the first movie I think he did where he didn't write the screenplay, like, and
That's
it was
true.
someone else's idea. So he kind of jumped out on a leap of faith with Will Smith as well. So I
Yeah.
think they all learned some hard lessons
Yeah.
making this
That
movie.
was like one of the points that the writer of Little Raj had said was that Little Raj's ghostwriter, if you will, had said that like it was probably beneficial for him to like not be so egotistical and try and do it all in this movie
Hmm.
and just be more focused on telling the story while Will Smith like wrote the story.
Yeah. Um, oh, also in Will's book, his producing partner, if you notice throughout his movies, is James Lasseter. So he's
Hmm.
always a producer, Pursuit of Happiness, 7 Pounds, all that stuff. Um, he did not want him to do this movie.
Really?
He did not like the treatment. He did not think it was good timing. Like, just was not on board.
Hmm.
And but like I was saying, like wherever Will was in his life, which I can go into like when we talk about his book, or I can at least read the passage when we release this episode. Um, where he was at in his life with his family, it was very important for him to try to do this family type project, because he talks about like when someone has something, they all kind of narrow in and support them on that. When Willow had Whipped My Hair, they were all like in on that when they did Karate Kid. So this was like kind of his like, okay, here's a family like project where like we can all be together and like focus in on this, and I'll be with Jaden and all this stuff. And so for that reason is like why he didn't heed the advice of his like producing partner, and being like, I don't know about this one.
Hmm.
So I think that's interesting because we talk about like, well, we've only done 2 seasons so far, but like we've thought about like why people take movie roles, and like especially where you're like, this wasn't that great, or you like you've already done this before. And
Hmm.
so to have a like, not weird, but to have a really good reason to be like, no, I need to do this movie for my family, like, and to
Yeah.
try to feel like a decent father. Like, I don't know. Obviously, I keep talking about that. Like, that really just warms my spirit. So, I can't shit on this movie too much. And then there's not that much to shit on, to be honest, but
Yeah.
it's just it's a C-level movie from an A-list star that like you're used to, delivering like the goods all the time. So,
That is a really good analogy.
thank you. There is some behind the scenes stuff on like the sets and building the world and stuff, and practical magic
Yeah,
and any
those
of
are
that.
really cool.
Yeah. I think that stuff just speaks for itself, like seeing the artist renderings and all that stuff.
Yes.
So,
And I think that's one of the reasons why I still give this movie such a high rating. There are CGI elements for sure. Obviously, the animals, whether it be monkeys or the big cats or the eagle, um, were CGI'd, but I think that spider was real. Either that or that they did a really good job CGing. I could not find if that was like a real spider that crawled on him, but I think all the other practical effects of the ship, the way that the ship was, it kind of looked like there was like bone or like a almost like a roller coaster track running through it. It looked really neat how they structured it. And even their like home apartment on their other planet like looked really kind of simplistic but kind of cool, like Manhattan edgy space.
yeah.
um and I just felt like a lot of these sets were real, and then you can find the real elements of Costa Rica, like we had mentioned, that volcano that Jaden is running
Active.
towards is a real active volcano, although they told him like it's not active right now, but like probably was. um and to also, like you said, be around those elements of, snakes and other poisonous creepy crawlies that are around Costa Rica. I have a horror story myself of a flying cockroach when I was there in 2005. But I I just enjoyed its like the natural beauty of that forest. It just looked really cool.
Yeah, I think too, like, Will really believes in, like, being on location for things really helps him.
Mm-hmm.
And so, therefore, it's no surprise that he would want to do this for this movie and probably also for Jaden, in like being in a jungle versus being on a, you know, soundstage with green screens and stuff,
Yeah.
like, is way different. And it probably, like, puts you in a certain mindset. And so I could totally believe that, because even like just going to like a town over, I'm like, ooh, I should dress like a little like different. Like going to Walnut Creek, I'm like, oh, don't look too like hood. Like, not that I do, but like, like there's white people around. Like, look presentable. Like, but yeah, being in a jungle, you're definitely going to be like, yes, I am jungle man.
Yeah,
Like,
you're more like reactory to like noises, even if they're not like set noises that they're making. There's a couple of great shots where I think it's when Katai's either looking up and he sees that the like monkeys or baboons or whatever they are, like kind of right above them, and they're like, all right, now look up, and then they would like make this big clapping noise so that he would like kind of like snap his head back and stuff. But even though there was obviously not a creature like there making that noise, I think you're right, being in the element, like gripping the grass that's under you and utilizing the like foliage that's around is cool.
yeah. Two, wardrobe wise, there's not like any great red, denim suits in this movie, but the suit that Jaden wears, it like has a cool little like built-in backpack.
Hmm.
But it changes color and camouflages him, or like whatever. I don't know how it works. I didn't really understand that, but like so too, on Earth there's like really cold zones and stuff like that. So Cypher was telling him, you have to get out of the cold zones, at night or whatever. Like, you have to get to a habitable area for you to sleep in. And
Hmm.
so he didn't make it at one point. That's when the bird saves him. But so he, like, is fumbling through and like freezing and like getting cold and frozen over, and his suit is like this like white and
Hmm.
blue. And then I'm trying to think, it's all black at one point. I
Hmm.
think standard, it's kind of like this rust like burgundy color. But I thought that was like a cool element, because I was like, oh wait, what's going on? Like, did he and to
Yeah.
think about, just like, I wonder if they had like different suits for him, or if they CGI'd like the
Mm.
color changing. But I don't know, that got my attention. I was like, oh, that's interesting that like he's like, now that he's like in water, it's black or something like that.
Yeah. It was definitely cool technology. Reminded me a little bit of Hunger Games, although their
Mm,
suits didn't have as much like specialty. That was only when they would like visit the Capitol, when some of their like costume pieces had like working like function pieces to it. But in similar like that it like read your body stats and stuff like that, and like heart
yeah.
rate and stuff.
Oh, and that was another good part or plot point in the movie. Or if we want to talk about the Scientology part, that was brought up. Um, it is so Katai is on his own, and Earth, I don't think he can breathe the air or whatever. So they have these like pods that will help his lungs acclimate or whatever.
Hmm.
And so he starts off with like enough to make it to the tail and come back. But at some point in his journey, he falls or gets into, I think, with the bird. Um,
Yeah, he No, I think it was when he got that like poison slug when he was like chasing off, and then he
Yeah.
had to like administer that medicine,
Oh,
and
that was
then
crazy
when
too.
he like woke up from that and he like looked at his bag and realized that they had like gotten smashed.
Yeah, but like, how did they get smashed? They're like in this hardcover backpack. Anyways,
Yeah.
it plot point. So, because of that, his Cipher checks in with him like at every so often, and it's just like, okay, how's this? How's that? How many pods do you have left? Count them off for me. And so he's lying because he doesn't want to have to go back. Like, he knows his dad is going to make him come back instead of finishing the mission. And so he's like, how come you aren't showing me the pods? But he can see his heart rate, and so he can detect that he's lying because of that. And I was like, oh, that sucks. but so in terms of Scientology, that's a part where they try that the Vulture article says that it's similar to when you're being when you're on the e-meter. Yes.
Yeah.
When you're being, what is that called? I should know. I'm an expert. Audited.
Audited, you're right.
Yeah, so allegedly people were making connections to auditing and that with how Will was kind of like monitoring Katai, or Cypher was monitoring Katai. Also, the story point of fear and how fear is like this thing you have to conquer, and like emotions get in the way and all this stuff. And Scientology is like very against like psychology and psychiatrists and all that kind of stuff. So they drew similarities to that, which I like I said, Will Smith is not a Scientologist to anyone's knowledge. He does say that he is a man of like all religions. He dips and dabbles in everything. And I think too, for me, like going into podcasts and Scientology specials, and I've listened to so much stuff, I initially, like, looking at even just Leah Remini's like A&E show, like I was like, oh, like this kind of makes sense, like in a self-help way. And I feel like that's the way I would be in a cult, because that and Nixium, I was like, oh, even WeWork, like that's not a cult, but like it had to, like, it was kind of culty in a bit, but like those things initially I was like, oh yeah, I could see why people join this. But I'm watching it and knowing that, like, obviously there's something bad, and where you go left in those things are, like, the people abusing their power and manipulating people, things like billion-year contracts.
Yeah, bananas.
Yeah, where you're stuck in the Sea Org and you can't get out unless you pay back like everything that Scientology has ever paid for you for while you've been working for them, which essentially you're working for, like, you're not making money, like, and most of your money goes back to Scientology, and all those kinds of like cults and religions where like all of your money you're paying back to this religion or self-help group and trying to better yourself or better the planet. That's what Scientology or Scientologists think. So, like, in a sense, I could understand why someone would be like, hey, like, this is interesting. And then in Hollywood, it's like, I'm sure a lot of the younger ones were born into it. But, like, you know, if you're gullible enough at the time and you see like, oh, Tom Cruise is this huge movie star, what's his secret to success? And he's like, it's Scientology, like, it's helped me so much. There are people who would be like, okay, like, yeah, this is gonna help me be a better person and stuff. It's where you get to like the aliens and the Thetans and all those things that it's like, but by then you're in too deep, like, so I say all that to say that I don't fault Will for taking some of those things and be like, yeah, this is kind of like I can grasp this and this seems helpful, or like I don't
Yeah.
think he intentionally put a lot of Scientology stuff in this movie like as propaganda or anything, but I could see like how some of those ideals could be like, oh yeah, like this seems helpful. Like, conquering fear is what holds most people back from doing anything, from asking someone out, from applying for a job, from
Yeah.
chasing your dreams. So, like, that to me is not something that I'm like, oh my God, he's trying to brainwash us by putting it in this movie. So, I just wanted to, like, say that to say,
No, it's interesting you say that because I actually took away a different theme of the movie,
oh,
which is I think by the end of it, both characters learn that it is more cowardice to have an absence of fear and emotion, rather to face through and work through your emotions.
oh,
And it's not that like having this absence of fear makes you this like makes you an emotionless person, but it definitely fear is associated with a lot of like other underlying emotions for things. And so a lot of them are kind of really interconnected. So I thought that by the end of it, at least Will's character learned that like damn, maybe I should be there for my kids more. And, he like stands up and salutes Katai at the end. And he just like runs in for a hug because that's actually what he's like. I don't want to fucking salute from my dad. Like,
yeah.
can you please just hug me like after all of that? Right. And then they had kind of made a joke like, I want to work for mom. And he was like, yeah, me too. So, because the
Yeah.
commander, the chief was whatever, was like getting ready to retire anyways. But I don't know. I just felt as though like this might have been a wake up call for like him as a dad and really learning that he can't blame himself for his mistakes, but rather like you just got to work through it.
Yeah.
I could
I
be
mean,
reading way too much into that though.
no, I agree. The Scientology stuff really isn't necessarily my interpretation of this movie.
Yeah,
It's like based on
totally.
the article, which I can see because I know I'm not going to pretend I'm a Scientology expert, but I know a lot about it compared to the average person probably. Like I went down that deep dive. But yeah, like for me the essential message, it was still like fear, but like not so much in terms of like uh scientology, like fear being the enemy or like emotions being the enemy, where
Right.
um and I think too, like I think you have to have that like come to Jesus moment of like, I wasn't able to do this. My son was, despite how hard I've been on him, despite like, him not technically being a ranger and being like certified to go on that kind of mission. He got through it anyways. And I've been a hard ass for what? Like, like, and that reckoning maybe of Cypher being like, okay, yeah, maybe I need to like chill out a little bit more and like just love my son instead of like trying to like break him to build him up or something.
Yeah, totally.
But after my Scientology rampage, is there anything else that was interesting, or maybe connection, or um, there is on IMDb a trivia fact that there was a like 300-page quote unquote Bible of like this world, universe, whatever,
Oh yeah,
because
they
they,
talked about that in the making of. They're like we had to have a Bible to really be able to understand and like create this world.
yeah, so there was hope, like Will intended for this to kind of be birthed into like video games, um, graphic novels, other
Mm.
movies, stuff like that. So that begs the question, is there enough a possibility that this would get a sequel or a remake?
I think the concept will absolutely be used again at some point in time. We see post-apocalyptic, like revisiting Earth or after Earth. I don't think so much like this distant in the future. Sometimes they're set in like iRobot was what 2032, so that's like the not
Right
so
around the corner.
and yeah, we said it's a whole middle schooler's length of an age at that point. So in
We're
12
closer
years.
to that than when we were born, so.
Yikes. But but anyway, yeah, I feel like, it's definitely within reach for a filmmaker to pick this story back up and to do something else. Play into I kind of wanted to see maybe that pre-context that originally got cut because they had 2 hours and 10, way more than it was like 2.5 hours worth of footage, but it didn't like screen test very well. And so M. Night was like, okay, let's just take out the world building. We can just like fill it in with exposition. But there's apparently like a whole 30 minutes of like how the Ursas and the humans like fought each other. And really more backstory and probably more action sequence that we might have seen with Will. That I would like to see. Just the lead up of like humans having to leave space or Earth because it's inhabitable, and then revisiting it to see like how nature has reclaimed itself, but maybe not so much have the sci-fi and alien piece of it.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I feel like if they wanted to, they could like try to make this like a series of some sort, but I think it's very rare that there's a movie that's not well received that gets a sequel or a remake or a reboot. So
very true. It kind of reminded me of the movie Dune a little bit based off of the books Dune, but they're making that into a multi-series movie. But remember, that was like released. It was
during the pandemic. Yeah.
Right. So a lot of it just went straight to HBO. So some people kind of mistook it as like a really long television series because it like swapped back and forth between like places and perspectives and stuff. So I could almost see it working like that. But you're right. With a movie that's kind of notoriously known for not being great, that's probably not going to get picked up, but at least a story set in the distant future I could see being snapped.
Yeah. Well, shall we try to have a snack and a cocktail for this movie?
We shall, but even I was stumped on this one. So I just chose a cocktail for this one, and it was inspired by Costa Rica and the volcano. But instead of because some volcano drinks are served in like one of those big punch bowls. So this is like a single serving of that, but it's cold, which I thought went really well with like the snow of this movie. The volcano is a recipe by Absolute Vodka, and it is made with vodka, almond liqueur, coconut cream, vanilla ice cream, and a little black cherry topping on top, which sounds just like a lovely little frozen treat.
Yeah, I love black cherry, so I'm terrible at this per usual. I basically want something that just looks like sci-fi-ish, like something from the Star Wars cantina in Disneyland.
Oh, totally.
Something that glows or smokes or, does something futuristic-y, in themed glass, perhaps. I don't know what the theme would be here. But my snack, I would make cookies that looked like the little like breath pods.
Oh, you could totally do that with like a little apricot jam because they were kind of like amberish in the middle.
Yeah. So that's
Nice.
all I thought. He didn't eat on his journey.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting. So like I thought maybe his backpack would have some like dehydrated like pill, like a pill you could swallow that like expands in your stomach or something. I don't know, but yeah, I thought that was odd. I thought at least he would go like fishing.
Yeah, no real food in this. Oh, except for the dinner they had where he was trying to be excused.
But that was like an indistinguishable food on their plate. Like I couldn't pick it out.
Sorry. No.
Not our best. You didn't give us a lot to work with.
Anything else? No, this or not this or that. No,
Would you rather?
rathers from you?
Well, I mean, would you rather face a rabid baboon or a giant eagle?
I don't know. Maybe the baboon, because at least they're like, I could try to square up with them or run.
Yeah.
An eagle, like, I can't fly. Like,
Yeah, it's gonna come at you from all angles.
yeah, they're just gonna like keep.
Yeah.
Like, so.
If that squirrel jumpsuit technology really existed, would you ever try something like base jumping or skydiving?
I don't think so. I, in my head, growing up, thought I was on X Games mode, but I don't know too if it's just age. But skateboarding's as X Games and rocket power as I get. I wasn't good at snowboarding. I've realized I don't like going downhill. I did an obstacle course that was like a feet in the air, I don't know, on like cables and shit, and that was shaky. And to get down from there, you had to jump like with like a harness, like, so yeah, no, I can rappel down stuff, that because there's got to be some stability somewhere.
Yes.
Like, so base jumping now, like, no thank you.
Yeah.
Because you have to jump. That's like the hurdle, is to jump, is to be like, okay, cool. I trust this wingsuit enough that, like, I'm gonna be golden. Like,
that it's,
no.
I'm gonna glide like a little sugar glider.
Yeah, no, thank you. What about you?
I am not afraid of heights. I can do things that are up high, but jumping, like, I can get myself in high situations, but I need a slow repel down from a place. And so, like, I would go
same.
skydiving. Like, I would do that with, like, an instructor.
Yeah, I've thought about that. Because I think skydiving's still dangerous, people. But, like, I think there's a lot more safety in when you have instructor, because they have, like, a backup and, like, all this stuff. But that's like when you see people go to, like, islands and stuff, and they, like, cliff jump, like, into, like, the ocean and stuff. Like, I don't think I could do that either.
That's risky because you don't know what the current's gonna be, and you could, like, hit some rocks. Like, you gotta know that, like, your surface underneath is open.
Yeah, so but it's just the jump part of it.
Yeah,
like,
true.
That's a lot of wee like in my pants. Like, just like, you want me to fling myself off of this thing?
Like a la Pocahontas, just like,
right? Like, in my head, growing up, that looks magical, but to do it, she's crazy. Like,
she's crazy. That jump is longer than the Golden Gate Bridge jump. That
she's
jump would
lucky
have
Coco thought about marrying her, because, like, I'm sure the other dudes in the village is just like, I'm not marrying the chief's daughter.
She's
Do you see
wild.
what she does for fun? Like,
she hangs out with a raccoon and a hummingbird. Coco, I'm you sure you want to get in with that?
And talks to trees. Like, she thinks her grandma is in a tree now. Like, but actually, that's like Native American, like, ancestry and stuff. Not so much. Yeah, not so much like they talk to trees, but it's part of, like, Disney trying to attempt at, their spiritualism and believing in the earth and all that stuff. Anyways, this is not a Pocahontas episode.
I think Coco could have painted with all the colors of the wind, if you ask me, but
I think so too. John Smith is the bane of my Pocahontas fandom existence. So
yeah, it's all about those bear claw tattoos.
That just makes
baby.
me think of you. All right, everybody. Thank you for listening to this week's episode, and to the people who've stuck with us so far, please come back for another episode of the intergalactic After Earth version of Inside the Actor Studio, because global warming is real, people.
seriously, if you like us enough to stick around, take another deep dive down this IMDb rabbit hole where we are coming back to modern day next week.
Focus.
And on that note, if you've got nothing better to do, go figure out a theme to watch a bunch of movies you've never seen.
I'm your host, Simone. Please subscribe to this blessed mess and leave us a like if you are into it.
And I'm your host, Bria, and it would be awesome for you to wipe off those gross Ursa sticky fingers and give us a review. Follow us at Roll Call Pod on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter. Listen to us on YouTube and check out some of our merch. It seems like I might have to update our little Raj t-shirt.
Ooh, this has been another episode of Roll Call and cut.